Hi, this is Eternal King bringing you another gaming video today. I wanted to look at another indie horror title that just kind of coming off of the Pools video with a game that was made in Unity, and I wanted to look at one made in Unreal Engine instead. So we are looking at Indigo Park.
All who journey to this newfound paradise, we welcome. Indigo Park offers a slice of the American dream to call your own. In this place, echoes of days gone are brought back to life as a new generation captures a glimpse of the exciting potential of
So right off the bat, the thing I like about Indigo Park, narratively speaking, is that there is an intro. You get a sense of who you are, you get a sense of where you're going, you get a sense of, why you're interested in going there. The intro kind of does all of it for you right off the bat, despite being a low-budget introduction, right? We get a few texture zooms, basically highlighting, certain assets that the developer has made, and using those assets to tell a story. So we get a little low budget, recording here, telling us that we're going towards the park. We get a little bit of branding elements saying that this person is a fan of theme parks and very possibly a fan of old theme parks. We get a sense of who we are. We're driving our car into the park, we're investigating, and we've got all the merch because we're a mega fan. We've even got the bobbleheads. And again, that's really all you need for an indie horror title. It's just like a little bit of narrative introduction. You watch a video of the park's opening. The park is very old. You get a sense that you're driving towards the park, and you get the sense that you are a mega fan of Indigo Park. And that is, again, all you need. And it's more than you get from a lot of indie horror titles that are either $5, $10, or in this case, entirely free. This Indigo Park game is 100% free. And yeah, I'm going to show you some of the other things that I'm a big fan of as well. First off the bat, we have collectibles. Fully functional collectibles in an indie horror title. Pretty nice, not something you'd expect to see. And I'm going to show you the next thing I really like about this game.
And welcome to Indigo Park, the world's most innovative and engaging
Vlogs.
fun experience. Jump into the world of your favorite.
Alright, you think about BioShock. BioShock has audio tapes. Right now, we have vlogs. We have videotapes.
I'm Rambling the Raccoon, and it's my job to make sure your experience.
I don't want to talk over this too much.
The most fun it can be. Just hop on over to the registration center to your left, where our friendly assistant will help you begin your adventure in the park.
Yeah, so again, functionally speaking, we have interactive objects, we have scripting, and we have audio logs. Except that they play on video monitors with a nice little animation. Like we have collectibles. We have, dynamic lighting with our flashlight. Now, we don't actually have legs if you look in the mirror. We're just a hovering flashlight. But, on the model of the flashlight, our hand is there. So you get a sense of that you're a human being.
Hi, I'm Rambling the Raccoon. And it's my job to make sure your experience here at Indigo Park is registered. Let me just get good.
We also have full voice acting. Again, you take that for granted, but I actually really like the voice actor for Rambling.
Is this your first time here at the park? Or did you just get plastic surgery? No worries. It's Rambling Tuesday, so you qualify for a big discount on your visit. Just follow me to the main gate. Ooh, I can't wait for you to see everything Indigo Park has to offer.
So again, we have full voice acting, maybe some guy they got off Fiverr.com, but unlike a lot of indie horror titles, I think Rambley's actually pretty solid. I think he does a good job of sounding like a cartoon raccoon, which is essentially what he is.
What's the holdup? The gate is open. Head on into the entryway. Hold on. My mistake. The gate is not open. There seems to be an error message being sent from the gate's power unit. Lucky you! You get to be the first person to try our turn on the generator mini-ramp adventure. Have fun!
Yeah, and pretty soon you're going to see that when we try to get the generator going, there's actually a little bit of light puzzle-solving elements. We'll grab another collectible here. So, already compared to Pools, which is a game where you mostly just walk and walk down ladders and walk through water, this is in fact a functioning video game to some extent.
Compact power generator. But it seems to be inoperable. Looks like it's missing a piece. Can you find it?
Yeah. So if you don't know much about game development in particular, every single time you walk up to one of those screens, there has to be a little script that says when player proximity to point is X, right? Play video, and that sort of thing. That's all work, right? It's all scripting. You flick this switch to open the gate. That's all scripting. And it's the kind of scripting that you don't see in most horror titles, which is why I appreciate it, and it's why I'm drawing attention to it. Now, Unreal Engine does allow you to script things without any kind of programming knowledge, using a click and drag interface. So that's part of it, is that like this individual that made this free indie title, he might not know how to code his way through a paper bag. It doesn't really matter. He can click and drag different interactions using Unreal Engine and basically script out functionality in a game without any prior scripting knowledge, which is great.
Oh, silly Bramley. Every guest needs a critter cuff. That will allow you access to reserved areas.
So this game isn't just an asset pipeline. It's an actually functional scripted video game.
Come in there and I'll get you set up.
Right, so we watch the video, we go in, the door is now open, and we get to, take a look at, and again, the assets are still there. We get to look at all the cool, creepy-looking stuffed animals, and we get to look at the bobbleheads and the keychains, and the T-shirts, and the rabbit ears, and like that's your asset pipeline stuff, right? That you would expect to see in any indie horror title. But one of the unique things about this game is that you have the scripting and functionality. Like, they animated the monitor to move around. And again, there is an interact key like you would find in like a Half-Life title. Right, I had to press the interact button to put on the bracelet. And again, you had arms, right? You had a real sense that you are in fact, and you can see that the model now for holding the flashlight includes the bracelet.
The door is mysteriously locked. Why not test out your band and save the day?
And yeah, and we can even interact with door switches.
Hooray! Great work, buddy. Now try entering the park, and we can start our Indigo adventure.
So just the fact that all of this, as Todd Howard would say, just works in a $0 indie title is amazing. In a backroom style, again, to me, backrooms comes in a couple of flavors, right? You essentially have party rooms, yellow rooms, water rooms, and then like colorful slide and ball pit rooms and things that, of that nature. Is the theming is tends to be just like generic creepypasta locations with a lot of copy and pasted texture work. But in this instance, we are actually in a theme park. It's going to make sense that everything we see is purple and blue and red and yellow and bright colors. I also like this, right? So we have some art assets. All of these branding materials, these posters, someone would have had to have made these, and basically thrown them into a frame. And I like that a lot, that we have not only, click and drag asset factory style stuff, we have like proper art assets in the game.
Renovations. For the inconvenience, your Rambly Tuesday discount will be free.
And again, the gentleman would have had to have animated this little, raccoon fellow for each of these videos that he's making. And like, it seems like it's nothing, but it's actually like a lot of work to do that for an indie developer. And again, more art assets. Ooh, more posters. I want to watch this movie, Steamboat Serenade. Like, I'll watch that. It's basically making fun of like Steamboat Willie, like the original Mickey Mouse movie. And I'm going to show you the next thing that I really like in this game. And again, this game is filled with things that are impressive from an indie developer. A lot of people will look at it and they'll say, oh, it's not scary, it's not creepy. I'm not as concerned about that because none of these games are going to scare me no matter what. What impresses me is scripting, interactivity, art assets, anything that isn't just like copy-paste
You know
locations.
why Rambly the raccoon loves Rambling's Railroad?
And also, when it comes to the just plain level design stuff, he's doing things that actual level designers do, like geometry breaks. You see all these little pillars here to break up the space. That's like kind of what you get in a AAA game, or a AA game, like just like a good video game. You would have a lot of geometry breaks. Now, this is the part that I really want to talk about. The developer coded in or scripted in essentially a Valve-like train ride, on rails kind of introduction to the park. To me, this isn't really any different than Black Mesa. You think about Half-Life and how impressed everyone was with the original Half-Life, and how you rode a tram car into work and got to look at things. Fundamentally, this is the exact same concept, and it's coming from someone entirely free of charge. And again, someone would have had to have animated these little cactuses and stuff.
Railroad. I'm Conductor Rambly.
And I gotta be honest, this raccoon kind of creeps me out when he's he's not making eye contact with me. It's kind of creepy. And that's the whole point of a creepypasta style game. Essentially a short story that has been blown up to massive proportions and is interactive in video game form. That's what we're getting. So, I would little tiny things you can poke at. Like, I think the train ride should probably be sped up slightly. It's going a little too slow. But again, these are like small things. It's functional, I'm going to Black Mesa right now, but instead of Black Mesa, it's, a creepy, theme park world, essentially. But yeah, from a scripting perspective, it's identical. Now, there is one part of the game I don't like that I'll talk about later, but again, more voice actors.
Sure, Armo. Why, you only crashed into 6 bars this week. What's barnstorming?
Yeah, every single character in the game has its own voice actor, which again, for an indie horror title, is mind-blowing. Yeah. So again, you have essentially video logs or audio logs in animated form. You have voice actors. You have animated assets. You have, again, yes, you've got the dynamic lighting with the flashlight, which everyone loves in their indie horror titles, but it's like, it almost doesn't matter. Again, stuff like that, the tech is far less impressive than the interactivity. At the end of the day, nobody cares about ray tracing. Like, people really don't. People want functional video games. And this game is functional. It is not just asset factory, asset pipeline, isn't this cool, isn't it nice, shiny water, shiny tiles. It is a game with voice actors. It is a game with scripting, and I'm talking about that in like the programming sense. And it is a game with base level interactivity. So you'll see now, at this point, this is the part where the on-rails train breaks down, which happens in every one of these segments ever. Like, literally that's what happens in Half-Life. On a rail, is you're like riding along the rails, and then something happens, you have to flick a switch, and then, rinse and repeat until you get off the rail ride. So the person that made this game is basically drawing from gaming's past. They have the right inspirations. All the pieces are there. You might argue that not all the pieces line up properly, but the pieces are there, and that's kind of what matters to me. So we won't bother going through the entire game, just because it's actually 2 hours long. If you want to try it right now, go for it. It's called Indigo Park, and it's basically a 2-hour-long free indie horror game. And see, a new voice actor, a new character.
You've known me for 100 years, Rambly.
I think the indie horror scene is a little too focused on atmosphere and creepiness and limbic experiences and like all that kind of like stoner talk, and they forget that they're actually making a video game. And that's kind of where I land, is like, apparently for $0 you can code out a 2-hour video game complete with voice actors that's entirely free, and you can do that in Unreal Engine independently. That's insane to me, like absolutely insane. So I would say that this game, you know, it's not a Super Meat Boy. If Super Meat Boy is like a 10, this game is like, I just want to lean on 7.9. Like, it's almost an 8. But like that, you know, I'm talking about that in reference to other, you know, major indie productions like Darkest Dungeon, Super Meat Boy, you know, things of that nature. I would rate this game, at least in terms of its introduction and like the first half. The second half is much weaker, but the first half of it, like the first hour, it's good. It is very good. It is made by, you know, again, it's voiced well. It is scripted well. It looks appropriate. And like, this is not so different from, you know, a Valve style level production, in terms of what I'm used to as a gamer that's come from the 90s. You know, this is someone that played Half-Life. This is someone that played BioShock, and they know that, you know, it's not enough to just show the player things. You have to let them interact with the world in some sense. And so yeah, so that's the part where the train breaks down, and then you have to go get the part and fix the train. Literally exact same thing as On a Rail by Valve, just on a much smaller scale. And again, if you want the creepy pasta stuff, it's there, right? Like, oh, ooh, she made weird animatronic sounds, and that's kind of creepy because she's colorful and should be fun, but she's actually scary. I get that. That's not the part that is as interesting to me. It's more interesting to me just the amount of art assets they crammed into the game that were unique, and the amount of functionality they managed to cram into the game as well. And if I manage to get there in this recording, there is in fact an entirely scripted out indie game in this game. It's a 2D platformer that you can use, and you can jump and go side to side like you would with any side scroller, and it's entirely branded out with unique art assets, using, again, you know, this raccoon fellow as kind of your inspiration. But the fact that they were able to do that, not only have a functioning indie title that is 2 hours long, which is quite lengthy, for $0, they have, you know, these animations, these art assets, and then they have a fully functional 2D platformer built into it. That is beyond impressive to me. Now, you might look at it and say, okay, it's not like a limbic mind-altering experience. Great. Doesn't matter. You might say that it's not that scary. Also doesn't matter. Strictly speaking, in terms of a display of the game developer's talents, this is more impressive than a lot of the generic backroom stuff you'll find, and I think it's kind of the new gold standard, right? Like, you know, I don't want to definitively say Unreal Engine is better than, is kind of the way to go for your indie horror experiences, but it does seem to offer more, as of right now.
Do not shame me with that common folk name. I am the proud, the prestigious, the professional Lloydfoot Elias.
And once again, new voice actor. Yeah.
Great actor.
Yeah.
Of course it was. I'm the real star.
So again, I think in total it might be like 5 voice actors they probably grabbed off of Fiverr to do this, but they all do a great job. I got to be honest. Like, they're not underselling it. They're performing big, and I think that's the way to go. So at the end of the train ride, you're introduced to the park proper, and it is still linear. Like, nothing about it isn't linear. But the park looks nice. And I'll show you right now as I get off the train that the park is pretty nice to look at.
So, what do you think? It's pretty fun, right?
Again, more of this fun merch stuff.
And friends. And more. So, where do you want to go?
And yeah, now you step out here and like, ooh, oh, skybox. And like a fully functioning water fountain and a Ferris wheel. and this clock tower that's going crazy, and like just like, you know, those hands on that clock tower would have had to have been scripted out. This, you know, big spinning statue would have to have been scripted out. It isn't just visuals and reflections and particle effects and a hollow experience. And you'll see that with the entire game. So when you go in here, there's something very, very cool. Hey, look, a cat. And yes, he animated petting the cat. Oh, it works. As Todd Howard would say, it just works. It works for $0. It is literally perfect for $0. Really impressive stuff from any sort of indie horror title. I'm going to do it again just because like I'm so flabbergasted that like, you know, I play Ghostwire Tokyo, you pet the cats. And that's a major, you know, that's a major production. I play this indie horror title, I can pet a cat for $0. It's fantastic. It's a lot of work, these little things. From, like, again, no money.
Information kiosk. If there's anything around the park you want to ask me about, just stop by here and I'll ramble on about it.
Yeah, so if you want to know what the collectibles are for, is you can basically just ask the raccoon's opinion on the different collectibles.
You found me! Don't I look adorable?
Yeah, and so you can just get little more of those fun little vlogs from each of the collectibles. Yeah, like he will literally won't talk about Lloyd because he hates Lloyd. That's great. I know more about the raccoon as a character. He doesn't like everybody he works with, even though he's a fictional animatronic character. That's great detailing.
Wow, look at that! You're at Jetstream Junction. Oops, looks like Jetstream Junction's being tuned up. Last I checked, there's a security office in the back of the theater. Maybe a friendly...
Yeah, we should have enough time to go through Lloyd's stage, where you actually get to see the giant animatronic lion. And again, it's not, you know, scary or creepy, but it is scripted well, and that's kind of the main thing I want to draw attention to. And yeah, he's also cool looking too, and he's animated well. So yeah, very impressive in terms of an indie developer. See again, lion, fully animated. He got up when we hit that proximity trigger, and then he ran off. And animating game characters is actually a lot of work for an indie developer. That's like an entirely different program. You don't get to do all that in Unreal Engine. It's the same thing with the original art assets. Like, it's the same thing with these animations. You can't make all this stuff in Unreal Engine. You have to import it in from other programs and make it special before you do the level editor, which is kind of the thing that Pools doesn't do. Pools is like 100% level editor, and okay, see, look, lion, proximity trigger, he walks away, very nice. Game's filled with proximity triggers, and again, that's just extra work. The animations and the proximity triggers. And, you know, you have the level design, and yes, the level design isn't as good as Pools. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, this little warehouse section, it doesn't, like, set my hair on fire or anything. But again, it is functional. Look, animation, and he fell down, and now he's crawling away. Proximity trigger with an animation. Very nice. You know, that's not so different than something like PT, for example, which I cited as one of the best small horror games of all time. You know, with Lisa kind of giving you a snuggle based off a proximity trigger, that's not so different, functionally speaking. So yeah, I think people look at it and they think that, oh, okay, the world isn't creepy to explore. It's not a limbic mind nightmare. You know, again, the level design isn't quite as strong, but they don't realize that the person that made this game had to split their attention between both level design and actually scripting a functional video game, beyond what you would find in a normal indie horror title. And so, once we kind of wrap things up with the lion here, I'm going to say that there's still like a solid hour or so of game for you to explore if you're interested in seeing that. But I highly recommend it. It's 2 hours, it's free on Steam, it includes things like a mini-game, which I have yet to show off. It includes things like rudimentary platforming, which I have yet to show off. So like there's spring jumps and things like that, a little bit of physics stuff going on. More puzzles, more rudimentary puzzles. But yeah, people will look at it and say, okay, it's not that pretty to look at. And it's like, it's true, but look at that. That is literally the same trigger you would get in Resident Evil Village, right? When the big, tubby lady cuts off your hand when you click the switch, it's functionally the same thing. Look at another proximity trigger, right? And I have to put away my flashlight and bring it back out because it's like after that plays, it does turn off your light, which is funny. And yeah, and like that's the level, and then you move on to the next one, and each level has its own, Freddy Fazbender style theming and everything like that. But the devil's in the details. That's what I would suggest for a lot of the indie horror crowd. Is like, don't just look at what's happening on screen in terms of the assets themselves and the way that the level editor arranged everything. Think about what's happening behind the scenes to make all of this function and just work, as Todd Howard would say. And again, considering absolutely no dollars was put forward to make this clock animate, I think it's very, very impressive. And again, if you do like the backroom stuff, I think this next part of the level you'll enjoy more. Like as it goes on, it gets like more overtly creepy. It's like a slow build up. But again, it's not the focus of the game. The focus of the game is that like, hey, I played Half-Life, hey, I played BioShock. Look, I can do things like this and have it be like high quality Unreal Engine production value. Yeah, in an indie title. Like we have proper level transitions, right? That's nice. Door animations, right? So when we animated through the door and then we transitioned to another level, and that felt pretty organic. This is the last thing I wanted to show off before we wrap things up, and this is the indie game. So again, the developer literally coded out an entire indie game that you can play as. Like, isn't this cool? How cool is that, right? How is that different from like a Square Enix style company? The answer is it's not different at all, right? Now, of course, the game doesn't actually fully work, and this is kind of where you run into bugs and issues. So you press the jump button, you don't get anything. Yeah, you press the jump button, you get the sound trigger, but you don't get to play. But again, that's going to wrap things up in terms of this indie horror title. You could even argue that, right at the 30-minute mark here, that the ambition is so high that certain things don't function properly, like the indie game implementation. But it's very, very impressive. This is Eternal King, signing out.